Today we continue working on our Dungeons & Dragons Playable Keep by adding a second floor, which will consist of a walkway and soldiers' quarters. So for this part of the project, we're going to need some jumbo-sized craft sticks, some flat rectangular barbecue skewers, some coffee stirrer sticks, and a couple of sizes of foam bricks. The first are 1 inch by a 1/2 inch, and then the second are these really tiny ones. These are 5mm by 10mm. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the foundation and the stonework. So here's the layout that we have for the ground floor, and I'm going to use a couple of these. These are some clipboards that I ripped the actual clip section off of, and they're going to make the foundation for our second floor. So after tracing out the area that I need, I glued them together with a little bit of wood glue and hot glue just to kind of tack everything into place and let it dry. And then got to work making so many floorboards. I lost count after about 160 floorboards that I made. These are 1 inch long, and I just kind of nicked the corners off of them to give them a little bit of extra visual appearance. Then I drew out a grid and a layout for the structure onto the clipboards just so that I knew where everything was going to go, and then got to the work laying out all of the floorboards in a 1 inch by 1 inch little grid. Now, the soldiers' quarters are going to be 6 individual rooms on the second floor with a hallway in between, and we're also going to have a balcony walkway on the front, and then a kind of little circular balcony out the back. So, going to need a whole lot of these little floorboards. When the project is fully done, I'll probably do something like count all of them just so that I know how absolutely crazy I was to do this in this fashion and make all the floorboards by hand. Alright, so now that you kind of get the idea of how I laid everything out, we're going to do a little test fit. Now you can see the gaps where all of the room's walls are going to be. I just used a barbecue skewer to make sure everything fit into position and nothing was out of place. Now we are going to wrap the walkways around with stonework, and then the actual building section for the soldiers' quarters are going to be made in a completely different fashion. So let's go ahead and grab our foam bricks. So nothing really super fancy about these. I'm just going to hot glue them into place, keeping in mind where some of the doors and archways are going to go. Realistically, I'm probably not even going to put doors in any of these sections just because it'll facilitate playability a little bit easier to not have the doors and just kind of use theater of the mind to understand that doors would be in these locations, and just make it a little bit easier to move models around without having to open and close doors and move everything in the way. If need be, I can always make up a few little improvised doors that are just kind of on a little stand that can be put into place and moved in and out of position as needed. Now, I sped this part of the video up quite a bit, but the whole process took maybe 20 minutes to lay out all these bricks in the formation that I needed them to be. So it doesn't take a whole lot of time, but building and texturing the bricks does take a lot of time. I spent a good day and a half to 2 days just making all of the bricks that I was going to need for this entire project. And I am almost completely out of bricks by the end of this video. Now, off camera I do change this up a little bit. Here you can see that I am laying out a third layer of bricks for the circular area here. I actually remove some of the bricks to bring it back down to 2 layers. I was going to go for like a enclosed room at first, but decided against it and changed it up to be a kind of secured balcony. So now I'm going to seal all the stonework with a mix of Mod Podge and black paint. This is again same as in the previous videos to solidify everything together, make sure nothing comes apart due to handling, and just kind of create a shadowed area and a dark area for all of the recesses in between all the bricks. And you can see here on this one long section of wall, I actually removed a few bricks and did a little modification off camera, adding in a couple of windows, just kind of like a extra little archer or arrow slit kind of situation, so that it has a little bit more of a defensive purpose than just a single solid wall. Now, I did learn from the first floor, and doing this with all of the foam bricks, I'm going pretty heavy with the Mod Podge paint just to make sure that I get all the nooks and crannies and crevices. And once that's been fully dried, I grab some Artist Loft Gray and then stipple on a simple coating on all sides of the bricks. This will give it that nice kind of initial stone appearance. And then once that's dried, I grabbed some neutral gray and then gave it a quick and simple dry brush. This will bring out all of the raised textures and give a nice kind of worn and hewn stone appearance. Alright, so now for the floorboards. We're going to paint these up the same as I have for most of the wood construction that I've used in the past. We're going to go with some Artist Loft Raw Umber to give us our nice kind of dark baseline for the wood coloration. Now there are a lot of floor slats here, and it was a little tricky getting the paint into all of the crevices, and I didn't really want to water it down that much, so it took a lot longer than I expected. I think this section took me about 15 minutes just to paint all the floorboards. But on the bright side, they were all dried and ready to go pretty quickly once I was done, and the next step was to grab some raw sienna and do a dry brush over all the floorboards to help unify all of the randomly mismatched colors. And then finish it out to give a nice worn, walked upon appearance. I did a dry brush of warm gray over all of the floorboards. Alright, so now that the foundation is done, it's time to start building our soldiers' quarters. So to make our walls, we're going to use some of the large craft sticks. Now here I am gluing two 5-inch sections together, and then I'm going to mount these barbecue skewers to the bottom of it to create kind of a base foundation for the wall. And to make sure that everything lines up correctly, I'm going to clamp a section of barbecue skewer to the side. This is going to help me make sure that everything stays in position, and this is going to give me a reference for where some support beams are going to go, which you can see me gluing on right here. Now, I love binder clips for stuff like this. They really make it easy to clamp everything together without having to buy a whole bunch of clamps and things like that. So here I'm just marking out a few areas where a couple more support beams are going to go in between the rooms. Since each room is 3 inches by 3 inches, it made it pretty quick and simple. Then off camera, I attached a few extra planks to kind of create a framed window area. And then to create a kind of little pocket for a window pane to slide into, I use a few of the coffee sticks and glue them into position with just a little bit of an overhang, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Now to create a lot of extra detail, I did the absolutely crazy thing of grabbing a whole bunch of these little bricks and slotting them in place with some tacky glue in random patterns. You can see here I've got some of the 5mm by 10mm bricks. I also grabbed some 10 by 10mm bricks. I ended up cutting a few down to make them even smaller and just kind of help to fill gaps. But once it's done, it looked absolutely amazing, but it took so long to do. Now, that's going to be for the exterior walls. The interior walls, I'm going to do just a simple little trick of gluing a few of these coffee sticks down to the bottom section to kind of create a wood planking wall. Okay, so now that all the walls are built, let's go ahead and paint them. So we're going to do the same thing for our wood treatment, but we're not going to do the aged weathering appearance since the walls aren't going to be as touched. So again, starting off with our base of raw umber, I'm not going to do the upper sections of the walls, just any of the support beams and the lower sections. And then our quick little dry brush with the raw sienna, just to give it that nice kind of processed wood appearance. Now for all of the stonework, we're going to start by adding just a little bit of extra texture with a tinfoil ball to kind of give a little bit more of the impression of processed stone. Then seal it all in place with the same 50-50 mix of Mod Podge and black paint. Now at this point it doesn't really matter if I get it on all the other sections of the walls since I'm going to be painting over the wood sections anyway. And then same as our larger bricks, we're going to do a overbrush of some gray onto all of the surface area, front and back. Just gives a nice kind of baseline for our stonework. And then once it's dried, finish it out with a kind of light to medium dry brush of neutral gray. Brings out all those raised edges and all of that lovely texture that was put in with our tinfoil ball. Alright, so now we need to add a few more details. So the first thing we're going to do is put in our windows. So I took some acrylic sheet and cut it to fit inside of the window frame, and then I took some wire mesh. This is some ducting mesh that I got from Lowe's, and I cut it to fit and then spray painted it all black. And then to hold everything in place, I do a little bit of wood glue and then take another barbecue skewer which I painted to match off screen and then clamp it in place and let it dry. Now once it's dry, these look absolutely amazing, but we still need to do one last step, and that is our wall filler. So I'm taking a little bit of lightweight spackle and putting it into a little Ziploc bag, along with some Mod Podge and the paint that I would be normally painting over it, some unbleached titanium. And then I give it a really good mix inside the bag. Now, I wish I could take credit for this. I actually saw another channel do this trick to kind of control how the filler gets applied and thought it was a really good idea. So what I did was I nicked off the bottom corner of the bag and then used it kind of like a piping bag for pastries and icing to control the flow and put it into all the crevices I needed. Alright, so once the walls are done, we can go ahead and assemble our quarters. So what I'm doing here to assemble everything is using a combination of hot glue and wood glue. So the process I used was I would coat the center of the connecting sides, so anything that would touch another wall, the center of that edge would get some wood glue, and then the top and bottom of that edge would get a little bit of hot glue just to help hold everything in position while the wood glue dries. Because once the wood glue dries, everything's going to stay together forever. So what I ended up doing was creating a few sections of wall, and Absolutely, if you're going to follow along and do this yourself, make sure you're measuring multiple times before you finish and finalize a wall. In a previous project, I didn't quite do this and ended up being off by a ½ inch on an entire side of a structure. It was a nightmare to try and fix after the fact. So, really measure 3, 4, 5 times if you need to make sure that everything locks into place the way it's supposed to. Now, because I spaced all of the rooms apart in the same way using a barbecue stick, all of the walls just kind of slot into the floorboards, and that really helped to hold everything together while the glue was drying. But the hot glue definitely worked to help that process along as well. Now, as I was putting in the last wall here, I realized that I made a mistake and put the whole thing together backwards. Trying to slide this wall in between the stonework and the remaining walls was very difficult, and I almost broke some of the foam bricks as I was doing it. Alright, and there we go. Part 8 is finished. So this is going to be a very interesting addition to the keep. I definitely want to make a roof for it, but I'm going to have to do that in a different video. I know I said this was going to be the last one, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have to do one more video. I still have to do the roof and then the spiral staircase. Alright, so thank you all for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section, and we will see everyone next episode.